wow, we're actually here. We're actually at the release of this movie. For the longest time, I didn't even know whether we were actually gonna get to see this thing because there were so many delays and so many things that happened in the process. I mean, two whole lifetimes have practically been lived since Spectre, to the point that I didn't even know if this thing was real. In fact, when I was sitting in the theater, I said, "There's no way this is actually happening," until I see like the gun barrel sequence, and then I knew it was real. But yeah, here we are. Let's talk about this thing. No Time to Die was directed by Cary Fukunaga and is the final outing with Daniel Craig as James Bond, which in itself is a bittersweet statement when you think about it. In the last 15 years since Casino Royale, he's made such a name for himself as this character, but also transformed this character into something that is wholly unique and original in its own regard, to the point that so many people, millions of them around the world, have come to love this iteration of him, and now to be saying goodbye, yeah, it's pretty bittersweet. After the events of Spectre, Bond has settled down with Madeline Swan, played by Lea Seydoux, and retired from the spy life. They seem to be doing really, really well, and things seem to be going great. However, trouble comes a knockin' when things from their past eventually start to hunt them down for reasons that I'm not going to go into because of spoilers, and eventually Bond has to get back into the game and stop whoever is trying to do something terrible, in this case a villain, played by Rami Malek. And that's all I'm going to leave it at, because there's a lot more that happens in this very long movie, which didn't really feel long, but I'll talk more about that later. But I want to keep things as bare bones as possible, because a lot happens in this movie. And the trailer that I saw originally, I've only seen the first trailer. I don't know how much the new second trailer gives away, but there's a lot of surprises to be had in this film. I've liked most of Craig's movies. I think Casino Royale and Skyfall are among some of the best things the Bond franchise has ever done. And unpopular opinion, I didn't hate Spectre. I know a lot of people were divided on it, and I actually kind of understand why they were divided on it, but I didn't necessarily think that it was the worst Bond movie in any way. But I didn't really like Quantum of Solace. I thought Quantum was very, very average, but I haven't hated any of the Craig movies. But I was very excited to see No Time to Die. I've been waiting for this thing for almost 2 years now, and when the pandemic started to push it back more and more with passing months, I genuinely, like I said at the intro of this, didn't even know if I was ever going to actually see this movie. So the fact that we're actually getting to see it is pretty remarkable. And it's pretty great because I was rather pleased with this movie. And No Time to Die in itself is a very different Bond movie than even some of the things that Craig has done in the movies that have come before it. Casino Royale was looked at as this turning of the leaf, which was very, very different, and then Skyfall did the same thing, but this movie does that even more so. It's a film that makes some interesting decisions in regards to the character that I found to be quite enthralling, actually, and I very rarely use that word. And it's a film that I'm going to be thinking about for a while, because I think this is one of those things that it sort of needs to marinate in your head as you're thinking about it. And it's not going to be easy to just pump out a review. The irony of it being I'm doing this review right now. Let's talk about the things that I can say first. I mean, everybody's great in the movie. Daniel Craig maybe gives my favorite performance yet of him as the character. He's fantastic in this, but I really loved everybody in here. I think everybody does a really, really good job. As far as standouts go, I thought Lashana Lynch was excellent as a new 00 agent in the MI6, and I think she'd added a very, really awesome level of depth to the movie. I really like Lea Seydoux in it, and in the brief moments that she gets in this movie, I thought Ana de Armas stole the show. In fact, a lot of critics have been saying that they should try and do spin-offs with her and see her character down the line in something else, and I absolutely agree. I think she's incredible in the film for the brief moments that she has. Rami Malek as the villain was very good. I don't think he's as good as Silva in Skyfall or Lashif in Casino Royale, but I think he's still fairly creepy and unsettling. There are a couple of moments with him in particular that I really, really liked. He's got limited screen time. He's not in it as much as you think he's going to be, but it's a very omnipresent kind of role. It's like you can feel like his presence is on certain things throughout at all times. And they do all of them do a really good job. But I gotta talk about this movie's direction because it is incredible. Fukunaga directed this thing so well. There are action sequences that have wide shots. They are not badly cut in any way. The action is in frame, it's in camera, and it actually is comprehensive. And I know that sounds funny, like saying that, because we've had movies which have done that before in Bond, especially in this series, but it's great to see them done in such a beautiful scale, and they're gorgeously shot. I should say that Linus Sundgren's cinematography is incredible. I saw this movie in IMAX, and there are moments where the screen expands. In fact, quite a few scenes where it's in the 1.43 aspect ratio, and it looks really, really great. And if you get a chance to see it in IMAX, I recommend taking that if you can get the chance to. The film is really dazzling. There are some use of colors in particular. There's a shot where red is used. I can't get that shot out of my head. It's a beautiful moment. Let's talk about that runtime because it's going to be a factor in a lot of people's reviews and takes. It didn't bother me too much. It's a movie that's almost 3 hours long, but I didn't really feel like it was 3 hours long. Like, it really moved for me the whole time. There was never any moment where I thought the pacing was wildly inconsistent or anything like that. I think there are some moments where the film does drag ever so slightly, but beyond that, I didn't really have any issues in terms of the film's runtime per se. And I think the storytelling is interesting in this. And like I said at the beginning, it takes decisions which are very interesting. And those are the things that I've been thinking about, because a lot of this movie's plot points and a lot of the way it handles certain character beats, they're so different that I feel like they're almost irreversible now. No spoilers, obviously, but the film makes certain choices that I feel like going forward in the franchise, if they, whoever they cast next as the next Bond, I feel like you cannot do some things again. You cannot fall back into convention, and you cannot do silly, over the top stuff like you may have gotten away with before. Spectre tried that, where it tried to bring the best of both worlds together, like some of the silliness of earlier films and the seriousness of the Craig era, and it tried to make a movie that was with both of those elements acting, alongside each other rather than in different mediums. Now, sometimes that worked in that movie, but there were other points, like especially with the plane scene in the snow, where it didn't quite work. And this movie is a lot more serious than that one, by the way. But like I said, the film's decisions are such that you can't even, I don't think you can even really try that in the future. It's a film that really it's trying to do something very different with the Bond IP, and it does so in a very, very interesting and fascinating way. Those are the two words that keep coming to my mind the more I talk about this film: interesting and fascinating. I also think this is a movie that could divide people. Some people are really going to like what this does, and some people might actually hate it. I think if you're somebody who is a Bond purist, like if you think things have to go a certain way in terms of a James Bond movie, I'm curious to hear what you think of this one, because that's not really what's going on over here. And as the film progresses, there's a point where it stops being a traditional Bond movie and it becomes something entirely different, a whole different beast. And I think that's where the film got even better for me. So I'm curious to hear what people think of it, but as I mull it over and I think about it, I like this movie more and more. I actually think it's one of my favorite Bond movies now. It's a film that's dark, it's well acted, it's well written, it's well directed. As for issues, I think sometimes the film can feel a bit stuffy. There's a lot happening in this thing. This thing moves very, very fast, but then there's about 15 different plots and they're all coming down, at the same time. And I think sometimes it's kind of like, okay, 12 things are working out of the 15, or 13 things are working, and sometimes it can feel like a lot is being like weighed down on its shoulders, and it can't, all of it doesn't seem to come into a full whole. So sometimes it can feel a little bit stuffed. I think that's really my biggest issue with it. I think there were moments where you could have had a little bit more with Malik's villain, but you don't. There is definitely, he is undersold a little bit throughout the entire film. So yeah, I did feel like he could have had a little bit more of a presence. Beyond that, I thought No Time to Die was fantastic. I think it's a film that really is worth seeing, and it's a film that I'm curious to hear what more and more people think as the days go by. I know there's going to be a lot of opinions on it. I'm going to give No Time to Die a 9 out of 10. This is definitely a movie that I feel like I'll be revisiting. It's a movie that I feel like is going to take some time for people to maybe get on board with, but I also feel like it's going to play a lot better on second viewing. There's a lot to think about. One thing I forgot to mention, Hans Zimmer's score in this movie. I quite liked it. I think this is his first foray into Bond, and I think he did a really good job. Billie Eilish's theme song was excellent as well. It's already won a Grammy, a very well-deserved Grammy at that one. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more reviews very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.